This is another Helldivers discussion, and I want to hear from you guys this too, okay? I want to hear your thoughts on this. This is an op-ed, basically, from PC Gamer, okay? So this isn't a Kotaku article. These are actual, like, gamers as far as we can tell. So the title of the article is Helldivers 2's First Big War Isn't Suffering Because of Tough Evac Missions or Metal Hoarding Farmers. It's the pass or fail reward structure that's spoiling the fun. Interesting thesis. Let's hear them out. Let's hear them out before we pass judgment, okay? I've been enjoying Helldivers 2 a whole lot. Specifically, I've loved the feeling of being that disposable, fragile grunt in the middle of a large-scale galactic war. That feeling that there's something bad happening at every turn is a whole lot of fun, and it's why every other day there's a TikTok of some Helldiver ducking and weaving, barely making it to a pelican, or making it into a pelican on a razor's edge. I also adore the concept of adding piddly little percentage points to a planet defenses, at least in theory. In practice, however, the current major order has a few issues. Ones that are solvable now that Arrowhead's Games HQ doesn't have upending or unending server problems distracting it. It seems like Arrowhead wants to make battles feel hard won, but one of Helldivers' core design principles is getting in the way. If you mess up a mission completely, you get zilch. Now, I understand, just at the outset, I understand why somebody might not like this, especially coming off of other live service games where there's always like some like participation awards sounds like really like, it sounds like a boomer way of describing it. Like, oh, everybody gets a participation medal in those other games. But I mean it like in other games, whether you're talking about Overwatch or even like a Fortnite, if you play a game and you like die, you're the first team to die in a match of Fortnite, you're still going to get some XP for it. Not much, but you'll still get rewarded for it. In Helldivers 2, if you fail the main objective and you don't extract and it's just, you didn't do anything, yeah, you get zilch. You get zilch. And that's how it does it. Now, I personally like that design decision because I think it increases the stakes. It makes it much more stressful, and it greatly prioritizes achieving those objectives no matter what, even if you die multiple times, even if that costs you secondary objectives, you're trying to achieve that main objective and still extract. I personally like that, but I'm willing to hear them out and see maybe they can convince me otherwise. Can't get XP if you're dead. True. Let's get something out of the way. Yes, people might be mucking up the numbers by farming. The larger wars of Helldivers 2 have 4 layers we need to think about. The major order, defend 8 planets, campaigns, defending a single planet, operations, a batch of missions that contribute to the campaign, and the missions themselves. Let's start with the campaigns and operations. This is good. Be clear about how the game actually works. There's 4 layers. This is how it's actually functioning at any given time. You could even say that there's like 5, because above this is the overall fight between the bugs and the automatons, but in effect for gameplay there's only 4. Current major order is to win 8 defense campaigns against the automatons. The issue is one of the best farming methods in the game for metals does not do that. The only successful operation can or will contribute towards the defense of the planet, and while a dev mistakenly confirmed that abandoned operations will add ticks to the bot's red bar of doom, later comments busted that myth. Interesting. So expecting players not to farm in a game with a well-established unlocked treadmill feels to me like expecting electricity not to flow or follow the path of least resistance. I've said many times, like, if players have an ability to exploit a mechanic, they will. If you give players, the classic example I've used is quick save in a game like Baldur's Gate. If you give players a quick save, they will use it. If you give players quick save in an RPG, they will quick save before a major narrative beat. Roll the dice, see if they succeed at the charisma check. They failed, quick load, try it again, quick load, try it again, quick load, try it again. And you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, because on the one hand, the devs understand that like players kind of expect it. It's a quality of life thing to have a quick save. It's just a nice thing to have. So if you fail in a combat encounter and you want to just quickly load again and try again, players expect to have that, and I can appreciate that. In the same vein, like if you release a PC game and you don't have a quick save in a game like that, there's going to be a mod day 1 to add it, so you might as well just add it natively. On the other hand, players will exploit it, and I think in some cases players exploit it to the detriment of their own experience with the game, because I think one of the best things with like Baldur's Gate 3, just like in a D&D campaign, is if you try a roll and you fail and you deal with the failure of that, you can lead yourself into situations you would never get in otherwise that can be just as fun or engaging or interesting as if you just quick loaded and kept trying until you were successful. So I actually think that a lot of players would benefit from not overusing the quick save and quick load, not save scumming as it's described, but I understand why it's still there, right? I can appreciate that. Dexy, thank you also, or Dukesy, thank you for the £2. Think Helldivers will last the rest of the year. If they can keep this post-launch support up, and if they can add in mechs and maybe swords and stuff like that, absolutely. Right now, players seem to be having a great time. It's just going to be a matter of, I think, shutting down the farms for metals and stuff and trying to make sure that the growth potential is long term, and if they can do that, they'll be successful. But it's, as with all live service games, it's about the post-launch support and the steady flow of content for sure. While we don't suggest bailing on the operation entirely when doing this, some players are still loading up for an operation with the Eradicate Automaton Forces mission in it, blasting through a quick 10 to 20 minute romp, grabbing their medals, and then bailing to dodge the deadly evac and drawn out exploration missions. Rinse and repeat. This has been upsetting a lot of people, especially when you're like matchmaking and stuff. I'm going to risk an undemocratic speech here by saying I don't think players farming these missions are even being jerks, really. It's a little uncooperative, sure, but not everyone who plays video games is going to be invested in some overarching narrative. Yeah, and I mean, frankly, if, again, players have the ability to exploit some mechanic, they will, because games are about finding exploits and taking advantage of them. It's kind of like how the entire thing is built. I think that's kind of the point. Helldivers 2 reward structure is currently at war with itself. It wants you to care about larger scale war efforts, but it also wants you to feel satisfied gathering medals, requisition, resources, and XP. Expecting players not to farm in a game with a well-established unlocked treadmill feels to me, yeah, just like I said earlier. As an aside, I will say that this whole situation is super fitting in universe. The core thrust of Helldivers world building is that Super Earth inherently makes every single problem it faces so much worse by trying to nuke it. Those bugs you're fighting, for example, they mutated and evolved because researchers were experimenting on and harvesting them as a source of oil. Of course, a squad commander deliberately hamstringing the bigger war effort by rocking up, putting in the bare minimum, and then bouncing so they can brag about how many medals they earned in the war is super apt and kind of funny in isolation. It just sucks for the players who want to win. But what if you think the problem's been overblown? Sure, these glory hounds aren't contributing anything, but there's a substantial bustling Discord server with lots of troops dedicating themselves to the cause. They can just complete missions, right? Actually, no. Every single defense operation has at least one civilian evac mission in it, and they're damn hard. The difficulty problem, in my experience, is that they are either a cakewalk because me and my squad mates manage to keep pace with the bots, or we fall behind and just keep stumbling. Yeah, these, I don't know if it's intentional or not, but the evac missions are super inconsistent for sure. Thank you, Take. Let's see. I feel like you should be able to play the game however you like. We're all adults and we know the risks. Taking advantage of a save system is a choice. Yeah, it's a choice, but I think as a game developer, it's also a matter of like balancing player freedom and also what's going to make the game fun. You know, how are you going to actually make it enjoyable? Because in a game like, I mean, I guess any battle royale, if you just say any battle royale, you're going to have more fun if you're engaging in combat versus sitting and hiding in a bush. Like camping, you can do that in one of those games, but you're going to not have very much fun if you're doing that. Whereas if you can get like acclimated to combat and run around and you're finding people, killing people, getting their loot, moving to the next location, pinwheeling around the circle, you're going to have a lot more fun than if you just camp. Both are viable. You're choosing to camp or you're choosing to play more aggressively. But one, I think 99% of people would agree, is going to be more fun than the other. And so I see the game designer's responsibility to be to find ways to push people into having, like, leaning into the more fun way of playing. One of the ways they do that in like a Baldur's Gate 3 is maybe with an honor mode, or, you know, they give you an option to play the game in a way with strict rules on it that force you to play and kind of hold you accountable. And of course they lean into just full player freedom and agency where they're like, yeah, it's up to you. If you want to turn off quick saves and if you want to go honor mode, whatever, you can do that. And there's no pressure to do anything else. Like the rules are there, the guidelines are there. You cannot break the rules even if you wanted to, because the mode is there. It's like a survival mode in the Fallout games. Yeah, it's there if players want it. And I think that that's probably the best solution. I would, like, I still hope that they can find ways to encourage players to try it, even if they haven't tried those more difficult modes before. Because you'll find like playing a survival mode in a Fallout game can, usually with a couple of mods, can be really, really satisfying and fun. Playing like a narrative RPG without save scumming can be super interesting, because you'll end up in situations you've never thought you would end up in, because normally you would save scum out of it, right? So it's just a matter of finding ways to encourage players to try it. But yeah, player freedom, I think, is the way to do it for
Boone
sure.
is now a member. Did
Thank
you
you,
see
Boone.
the tweet from CEO that alluded to a more in-depth stealth overhaul? Space Vietnam, Malevelon Creek, Buddha go crazy. I like the idea.
Yeah, I actually like the idea too. I mean, it could be interesting to have a different type of play style, because right now you have certain metas tied around close combat with like shotguns. Other play styles are more long range with auto rifles or stratagems that are specifically for like 360 millimeter barrages and things that are very long range. And so it could be really interesting to have a meta built around stealth, specifically where you get in, maybe you can remotely activate terminals and stuff like that. There could be all sorts of really interesting things that you could do with it. So I like the idea. I think it could be super, super cool. As for when we see it, who knows, but it's all over the place. Also, thank you for the 5. So how do you feel about easy/story modes in Souls games? Or Souls likes, since that seems to be a super touchy subject amongst a group of players. I think it's primarily with those games, it's because the community is built on this like shared misery of overcoming that challenge. So it's almost like if you're a Souls game player and you finish those games, you've bought the right, or you've earned the right rather, to be a member of that community by overcoming that challenge. And I think even with Elden Ring, when they introduced the summon system, a lot of people felt as though that was a shortcut to entering the community. So there were a lot of gatekeepers that came with it. As for Souls games, like, I can appreciate that they're more hardcore and they don't have different difficulty options, and it's just, yeah, no, you're gonna play the game just like everybody else, and that's what it is, what it is. And I can appreciate that, that the game's not trying to be everything to everybody, and I think that that's a good way of doing it for them, especially because in those cases they can balance the game, understanding that nobody's going to be on different levels or difficulties.
Mr. Google is now a member. I'm waiting for the anime cosmetics where my bikini wearing Helldiver crushes bugs with them thighs.
Just wait. PAX is coming up. I'm sure we'll see some of that. But yeah, I mean, as for all of that, I just think like story modes in a game like Elden Ring, for example, defeats the very purpose of games like Elden Ring. It's just, for one, there's barely any story. The story is encountered passively and through world building and passive dialogue, things like that. It's not like it's an active story where there's the whole scenes playing out and tons of dialogue and stuff. So it's not that straightforward. I don't know what the purpose would be, but I think the way they did it with Elden Ring was good, where they had systems in place. So if you wanted to take on bosses maybe a little bit easier or with less headaches, you could do that with summons. But if you wanted to just be masochistic and hate yourself and really put yourself through the ringer, you could do that too by not allowing yourself to use summons, not allowing yourself to use Combat du Jour or the Sword of Night and Flame or whatever else. And in the same way, I guess you could say the same thing applies to games like Baldur's Gate, where there's going to be hardcore players that refuse to let themselves quick save. And they're like, I'm only going to save on long rests. More power to you. More power to you. Nice thing is players can make those choices, like you're saying. I think the devs just walk a fine line where they have to find ways to either encourage players to go with the more fun route, or at the very least empower and inform players to make those decisions in an informed way, so that they know what decision they're making without kind of not realizing that they're making a decision. See, dying doesn't stop the bot drops from coming, and the longer we take to kill the bots already there, the more bots arrive. This makes clearing the bots even harder, and on it goes. There are some nifty ways to do these missions without risking that, though. One popular technique that's emerged is asks 3 squad mates to cause a ruckus out in the countryside while one stealth commando slips into the evac center and ushers the civilian people into escape pods. I love that this is possible, but it's a level of coordination you just can't expect randoms to have. Which, I mean, I agree. That's kind of what I've found is the most successful way of doing it. Normally, I wouldn't actually have a problem with this. Helldivers 2's non-Newtonian difficulty spikes and its propensity to spill into utter flashback-inducing chaos works brilliantly in its other missions, but there's one key difference. In every other mission type, you can fail to extract and still get some rewards as long as you fulfill your primary objectives. You just miss out on your samples. This lets you push back or push your luck and beef it without feeling like you just wasted a bunch of your time. This came to a head over the weekend where in a defense mission I had a right laugh losing. I spent most of the mission running away from tanks, desperately scrabbling for some kind of advantage, and occasionally clawing back ground in moments of cool heroism only to meet my demise. From a gameplay perspective, it ruled, but seeing the reward screen at the end read goose eggs just tainted the whole affair. Take my medals, take my glory, take my samples even, but I just spent 30 minutes struggling tooth and nail, and I was given the exact same rewards I would have gotten if I had just quit. Something's wrong here. I mean, I agree it feels bad that you like grind and grind and grind, but I think it fits with the meta narrative that like you're just supposed to be here grinding out these objectives, and if you're a grunt that doesn't achieve the objective, you're nothing. Like that's why on the screen it splashes with like total waste of life, you know. It's like that was stupid, good job. But like he's saying, not everybody's going to care about the meta narrative. They just want to play the game, and after struggling for half an hour to not get any reward for half an hour of struggle feels really bad. Yeah, but I guess for me it's like, yeah, it feels bad, but at the same time it feels really good when you achieve the objectives in those missions and overcome it. You know, that feels even better. I think that makes up for it, for me at least. Maybe not for everybody. It all comes back to rested XP. It's an old tale, but it's still relevant today. Did you know that in World of Warcraft, rested XP was initially an XP penalty, one which kicked in if you were playing for too long. Playtesters hated the snot out of it. One bright spark at Blizzard had the idea to change it from a penalty to a bonus and became a staple of the MMORPG genre. Helldivers 2 has a similar issue, though its problems are a little more concrete. In these evac missions, you get a penalty every time a civilian dies to friendly fire, which doesn't feel great. Instead, what if you started at 0, then snagged a bonus for everyone that escaped? You extend this mission, or this to the mission objective itself, rather than having a minimum amount of civilians required for success, have a relatively achievable floor, then give players a bonus for each civilian they're able to extract past that. Like other missions, the core order is pretty straightforward and achievable, but you can still rake in the rewards for exemplary service. So if you're just saying like, hey, if we get 3 civilians evac'd, but then we had to bail because we died with a horde coming, we should still get rewarded for saving 3 of them. I would agree with that. I mean, I think that that's fine. If that's all we're saying, like just get us like maybe you get a third of the XP for getting a third of the guys out. I think that makes sense because you still technically achieved the goal. So I can see that. Like if the objective, I think what it is, Affliction, if you don't complete the objective, you shouldn't get rewards. This is this new generation of gamers is so entitled. I mean, I think what it is though, if the objective is to evac scientists from this location, get them off the planet. If you evac 3 of them out of the full 20 you were trying to evac, you still achieved like part of the objective. Just like if you completed half of the objective in another mission type. You just didn't evac everybody. I can see both sides of it. I think they could go with either way, but I think it would be, I wouldn't care at all if they made it so like, yeah, get 10 of them out. You get 10% of the reward for each individual scientist you evac. I could see that. I'm sure that changing the underlying code of these missions is a lot of work, especially with how much sweat and tears Arrowheads had to put into expanding its server backend, but on paper, I think fixing the evac missions is actually pretty simple. Let's go one step further and apply this to the wider campaign too. What if instead of getting 0 contributions for ditching an operation, you get a stacking contribution based on how many missions you did complete, similar to War Bond medals? Even if a single mission gives you a sliver of contribution without the stacking modifier, you still won't feel like you just spent 20-40 minutes helping nobody. Similarly, even if 12,500 requisitions isn't actually a great reward, players are going to be upset if they fall short by one measly planetary fancy. I mean, I think with all of it, it's an interesting pitch. I think if you start rewarding people to bail on operations early, like, you know, you give them a little bit, a percentage of the reward for bailing early and only doing 1 of the missions or 2 of the missions of the 3 for example, I think you're just going to see the number of abandoned operations skyrocket. And I think the other piece of the operations that's kind of key here, because just to be clear, like operations are the batches of missions which contribute to the parent campaign, basically. And so my understanding is that, you know, if you have the overarching war, you know, this is for like the planet, okay? And then we have these missions, and in the mission, let's go like, this is the operation. This is the operation. I'm trying to write with my mouse. So we have this, and then within this we have missions. So we have this mission, which is 1, this mission, which is 2, and this mission, which is 3. Part of the goal is to matchmake people together so that they complete the first mission. So, you know, you have 4 players here, and they want these 4 players to work together as you bounce from this mission to this mission. And so then you completed the operation with your team, and they didn't have to move the matchmaking around a ton. They'd like for a group of players to at least bond in that hour and a half. Like usually it's like these are 40 minutes, this one's maybe 40 minutes, and then this one's maybe 15. So the goal is to give you an hour and a half with a squad that you can kind of work together and achieve the operational goal at least. So my only fear with making it so there's no penalty for pulling out after one mission would just be that you then start to see this start to sliver up and break apart, and less squads would work together. Because like I said last night, I was playing some of this for like an hour and a half, and we did a full operation together. We loaded in the first one, we worked really well together, and then everybody stayed in the party and we finished the operation fully together. And I think that's the goal that they have, is that they're trying to get people paired up for the whole operation. And if they let you bail on that early, it doesn't really work. Either way, I do agree they have to fix the extract missions, because it doesn't feel like the difficulty is consistent. It feels like the spawn rates might be a little bugged on I think the challenging difficulty was a little bugged like a week ago for the automatons on the extract missions, because it felt like harder, because it's like challenging and then hard. It felt like challenging was more difficult than hard, even though that's the opposite of how it should be. Interesting concept. I'm not too bothered by it. I can understand why people are kind of teasing it, being like, lol. Everybody wants a participation medal now. Cringe. But I think it's an interesting take. I'd be fine if they did partial rewards for partial extractions of the squads of scientists and civilians. But I don't think it's crucial. It's not really high priority. I'd much rather have mechs and swords, honestly. So I'd rather they focus on that first, personally. He took my thing. Red flag.